Well, breaking at 8 o'clock right now, what are the top developments in the Ukraine crisis with Russia's war gambit? Well, the latest news is that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has just a short while ago sanctioned 5 Russian banks, also has predicted a pariah status for the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Germany has halted approval of Nord Stream 2. That's a gas pipeline which is meant to be built from Russia to Germany. So they've halted that approval. The United States has also said it will impose significant sanctions on Russia in the coming hours. Turkey's Erdogan has said Russia's decision is unacceptable, and the European Union Commission has also put forward proposed sanctions to member states. Air France and Lufthansa have suspended their flights into Ukraine. Also, Ukraine says that 2 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in Russian shelling in East Ukraine. Here's what Vishnu Shom is reporting as he breaks down what's exactly happening in Russia and Ukraine right now.
Well, it is the moment the world hoped would never come. But it turns out America's intelligence was correct. Russia's moves on the Ukraine were just a matter of time. The big question, does this mean a larger war? Now, these are the big points in our explainer on why the Ukraine crisis matters. Now, late last night, in an address telecast on Russian state TV, President Putin signed a decree announcing the independence of 2 Russia-backed areas, Donetsk and Luhansk. We'll tell you about that in a bit. Russia has now deployed what it calls peacekeeping forces into Donetsk. In other words, its own soldiers. The US will announce sanctions at any stage now. Ukraine's president has asked for international support and wants those sanctions to punish Russia. But Germany, in fact, in what are sanctions in a sense, has decided to halt operationalizing the $11 billion Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline. That is a huge hit for Russia, but one which will also possibly impact Germany, which relies heavily on Russian natural gas for its economy. Reports suggest that the United Kingdom will now impose sanctions on 5 Russian banks and on 3 very high net worth individuals. The United Nations has condemned the Russian move and has backed Ukrainian sovereignty. India has called for a diplomatic resolution of the crisis. So what exactly is Donetsk and Luhansk, the 2 breakaway republics that Putin says are now independent? Well, let's take a look at this map. Now, this area in eastern Ukraine is called Donbass. The area includes the cities of Donetsk and Luhansk that you can see over there. These have in fact been controlled by Russia-backed insurgents since 2014. Now, the area you see here is claimed by the insurgents, but is actually controlled by Ukraine, and the line of control over here, known as the line of contact, is located over here. Let's go to the next image over there to show the line of contact. So the big question, will Russia push beyond this line of contact to try and control all of Donbass, which is about 30% of Ukraine?
Считаю необходимым принять уже давно назревшее решение. Незамедлительно признать независимость и суверенитет Донецкой Народной Республики и Луганской Народной Республики.
Ми віримо в те, що війни не буде потужної проти України і не буде широкої ескалації з боку Російської Федерації. І якщо буде, буде запроваджений військовий стан.
中方将继续按照事情本身的是非曲直，与各方接触。乌克兰局势正趋于恶化，中方再次呼吁各方保持克制，认识到落实安全不可分割原则的重要性，通过对话谈判缓和事态。
Now, the immediate impact of Russia's move to grant what it says is independence to the 2 breakaway republics has been felt in markets around the world. The Sensex has tanked 1,000 points at a stage. International oil prices surged 4%. There was a double-digit fall in Russian stocks and heavy selling in Europe. The US S&P futures was deep in the red.
We call for restraint on all sides. The immediate priority is de-escalation of tensions, taking into account the legitimate security interests of all countries and aimed towards securing long-term peace and stability in the region and beyond. We are convinced that this issue can only be resolved through diplomatic dialogue.
And India's defense minister has also said that India wants a solution through talks, saying that he hopes there'll be a resolution after Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin meet, which seems, however, increasingly unlikely at this time.
जो यूक्रेन का मामला है, भारत यही चाहता है कि किसी तरीके से शांति स्थापित हो और बातचीत के द्वारा इसका समाधान निकाला जाए, यह भारत चाहता है। और अभी जो सूचना प्राप्त हुई है, उसमें अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति मिस्टर बाइडेन ने यह कहा है कि हम रूस के प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बातचीत करने को तैयार हैं। यदि दोनों की बातचीत होगी तो मैं तो आश्वस्त हूं कि कोई न कोई समाधान निश्चित रूप से निकलेगा। भारत का जहां तक पक्ष है, भारत शांति चाहता है। भारत सदैव से विश्व शांति का पक्ष धर रहा है।
So will Europe soon be at war? Will NATO soon be at war with Russia? Will Russia actually create war by invading more parts of Ukraine? Well, joining me now is Mr. Bohdan Nahailo. He's a senior journalist of the Kiev Post. He's currently in Barcelona. What is the view looking like from what's happening in your home country, Mr. Nahailo, especially from Europe? We've heard the strong words there by the British Prime Minister, but we've seen other countries, notably China and India, calling for restraint on all sides.
Well, that's understandable. You know, Ukraine is far away from India, and unless you have business interests there, it's not of primary concern. And for China, it should be, because it's building its Silk Route to the west, and Ukraine is an important staging area in this. So it should be interested in the economic implications if there is mass-scale destruction. Look, even here in Barcelona, where I've evacuated myself to, I'm the chief editor of the Kiev Post, there's a lot of concern. The newspapers, the Spanish and Catalan newspapers, are full of this story of the potential for war. In Ukraine itself, look, we've been at war for 8 years with Russia. It's not. Let me also commend you on a very balanced presentation of the situation. I was very impressed listening to how you portrayed to your audience what is going on. But these are not insurgents. You know, Russia took from Ukraine Crimea, disguising their soldiers as little green men. They used some locals, but essentially their own Russian troops that they've kept in place, denying that these are Russian troops, only now coming out with the fact that they're sending peacekeepers, legitimizing their presence there. So we have an aggressive neighbor, still very imperialistic in its mindset. I mean, imagine if Britain was to say to you today, Indians, look, give us a chunk of India, because, you know, they're English speakers there, and they feel uncomfortable because you have different languages and you're not paying you sufficient attention. You know, it's nonsense in the 21st century that we're living in. Sometimes I'm confused with all that's happening. And the important fact is that they are behaving like 19th century imperialists.
In fact, it's interesting, because how much do you think this is really driven by the vision of one man? I'm saying vision, but perhaps this, I would describe it differently, not as a vision, but of the old Soviet Union, of going back to creating this larger Russia, which he believed is what it should have been. He's of course often criticized the breakup of the former Soviet Union, Vladimir Putin.
You put your finger on it. I mean, people talk about, you know, sort of Russia being threatened by NATO, that they just want equality with the West, etc. This is nonsense. Putin is very much like Hitler. Nobody took Hitler too seriously, unless you were Jewish or a political prisoner under the Nazis, until he started carving up his neighbors. And we saw what happened in 1938 in Munich, when the British Prime Minister Chamberlain and the French caved in and through appeasement thought they could buy him off. The Russians, the Soviets did the same. They signed a Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact the following year, and 2 years later the Soviet Union was invaded by the Nazis. Today we have somebody who wants to go down in history as a restorer of empire. He's after restoring Russia's greatness. But these are not those times. Russia could be great. You talked about individuals. When the Soviet Union collapsed, there was a decent Russian leader, Boris Yeltsin, who spoke about a democratic Europe from Ireland to Vladivostok. Right. There was nothing stopping Russia from becoming a member of NATO, or even agreeing that NATO be disbanded, but creating some new economic and security alliance or system. But this man, first of all, he Putin. First of all, he clamped down hard on the Chechens within Russia itself in a very bloody war, blowing up buildings as pretext for the attacks.
Right.
Killing his dissident opponents in various countries outside, and now, using this non-starter of Russian speakers being threatened. Look, in Ukraine, we have a president from a Jewish background, a Russian speaker, elected by 73% of the population. There's no threat there to Russian speakers,
of course,
the South and the East.
We'll be looking now at what the United States announces tonight. But I think that point you made really, that India taking a very different view of what we are seeing here as perhaps what Western countries are looking at. India making sure that it's going to maintain its independence on how it actually reacts to this crisis. Let's see how that develops. Thank you so much for joining me at what are extremely difficult times for your country. Thank you very much. And let's go across now to our other big stories back here in India. And this is good news, of course, on the COVID front. As some have said, COVID now almost seems to have disappeared, but we know that it can come back hard. But let's just look at the good news right now, that in Mumbai, where cases were at a high just a few months ago, cases are now dropped to the lowest in almost 2 years. So now the health minister says the city is ready to reopen.
Relief for Maximum City. For the first time in 2 years, Mumbai reported just 96 new COVID cases in 24 hours on Monday, the number slipping below 3 digits for the first time since April 17, 2020. Overall, Maharashtra reported 806 COVID cases, which is the lowest in 2 months.
निर्बंध लावलेले होते, त्याच्यामध्ये मात्र शिथिलता मिळावी अशी अपेक्षा केंद्राने केलेली आहे. तशी अपेक्षा टास्क फोर्सनी सुद्धा त्या पद्धतीचं जे काही आहे ते मान्य केलेलं आहे. त्यामुळे आता हे माननीय मंत्रिमंडळाच्या बैठकीमध्ये सुद्धा आम्ही हे मांडलेलं आहे. मुख्यमंत्री महोदय या संदर्भातला नक्कीच सकारात्मक निर्णय घेतील असं मला 100% विश्वास आहे. मास्क मुक्तीचा विषयच येणार नाही, पण निर्बंधाच्या पासून मुक्ती मिळायला हरकत नाही मार्चमध्ये, अशी माझी एक अपेक्षा आहे.
With 3 massive COVID waves in the last 2 years, the battle for the health department has been long and extremely complex. But now, government and private doctors weigh in on why they think the third wave is over.
ओमाइक्रॉन फिलहाल मुंबई में एकदम कम है और हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन भी नहीं के बराबर ही है, आईसीयू में एडमिशन भी नहीं के बराबर ही है, बहुत कम हो रहे हैं. और इस समय ओमाइक्रॉन ऑलमोस्ट मैं बता सकता हूँ कि जाने के इसमें, पर फिर भी हम सब लोग ने सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग, मास्किंग और वैक्सीनेशन, इससे दूर नहीं जाना है अपने को.
पिछले 10 दिन से मैं बोलता हूँ, बम्बई की स्थिति में जरा थोड़ा सा सुधार है. जैसे हम यहाँ पल्मोनरी फंक्शन टेस्ट करते हैं, तो हम सबका कोविड टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, एंटीजन टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, आरटीपीसीआर, जिसमें से हार्डली हमको 1 या 2 पेशेंट आते हैं हफ्ते में जो कोविड पॉजिटिव आते हैं.
सब जगह यही हालत है कि पेशेंट 10 के अंदर ही है और कुछ जगह तो शायद पेशेंट भी नहीं है. तो काफ़ी हद तक हम बोल सकते हैं अभी जो भी ये थर्ड वेव ओमिक्रॉन की है, ये खत्म होते आ रही है.
COVID restrictions have affected not just residents of Mumbai, but also thousands of others who earn their livelihoods here and commute daily from other places. And there is now real hope that Maximum City could soon be completely back on track.
And international travel getting easier as well, as Dubai has now removed the requirements for Indian travellers to have an RT-PCR test at Indian airports before they leave for the UAE. The fresh advisory asks Indian nationals to produce a negative test certificate taken up to 48 hours before the scheduled departure of the flight. For transit passengers, the rules at the final destination would be applicable, but given how much the traffic is between India and Dubai, this is likely to be a major relief for Indian travellers. Well, tomorrow is the 4th phase of the UP election. So India's biggest state elections will be halfway done as they move to phase 4. But already the campaign is on today for phase 5. So you can see all the top leaders in UP moving ahead to phase 5 of the elections. Remember, there are over 17 crore voters in UP alone in India's biggest state election.
यूपी चुनाव में इस बार भी जीत का चौका लगने वाला है. चौका एक बार 2014, दूसरी बार 2017, तीसरी बार 2019 और इस बार चौका। यूपी के लोग 22 में भी गौर परिवारवादियों को हराने के लिए फैसला कर चुके हैं।
जो छोटे नेता हैं वो छोटा झूठ बोल रहे हैं, जो बड़े नेता हैं वो बड़ा झूठ बोल रहे हैं, और जो सबसे बड़े नेता हैं वो सबसे बड़ा झूठ बोल रहे हैं। इन्होंने कहा किसान की आय दोगुनी हो जाएगी। बताओ हमारे किसान भाइयों किसी की आय दोगुनी हो गई तो बता दो। बताओ नौजवानों की परीक्षाएं रद्द हुई कि नहीं हुई, पेपर आउट हुए कि नहीं हुए, और ये बीएड टेट वाले लोग हैं, बताओ आपको संघर्ष करना पड़ा कि नहीं करना पड़ा।
Well, in India, there are always elections happening, and today in Tamil Nadu, the results of the local body elections were held after 10 years. So, it was a huge win for the ruling DMK. Stalin said this is a vindication of the Dravidian model of governance. The AIADMK said it's an artificial victory. Here's the latest from Chennai.
Celebration at DMK headquarters in Chennai following a clean sweep by the ruling party in urban local body polls. The elections held after 10 years following issues over delimitation and reservation have now handed MK Stalin his fourth consecutive electoral victory since the Lok Sabha elections. Significantly, this time the party has captured AIADMK bastion, the Kongu region in western Tamil Nadu around Coimbatore, where the AIADMK had swept assembly polls just last year.
கடந்த 9 மாத கால ஆட்சிக்கு மக்கள் வழங்கி இருக்கக்கூடிய நற்சான்றுதான் இந்த மாபெரும் வெற்றி. திராவிட மாடல் ஆட்சிக்கு மக்கள் கொடுத்திருக்கக்கூடிய அங்கீகாரம்.
For the opposition AIADMK, it's a fourth successive poll defeat. Party chief OPS conceded defeat, saying AIADMK bows before people's verdict. The party will surely win again. This is an artificial victory for the ruling dispensation. The BJP, which fought alone, parting ways with the AIADMK, performed poorly, winning just around 300 seats out of 12,000 till 6 this evening, but hopes to have improved its vote share to have better bargaining power when it comes to seat sharing for the 2024 Lok Sabha polls.
Our councillors are there in all the corporations, all the municipalities and town panchayats. We have come second in more than hundreds and hundreds of places in Tamil Nadu now against the DMK. So people are, they have really welcomed BJP.
While MK Stalin has clearly emerged to be a mass leader yet again, his real challenge would begin now in fulfilling his big poll promises, from creation of jobs, the 1,000 rupee monthly allowance for women heads of families, tackling flooding and empowering local bodies in the spirit of federalism. In Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, for NDTV.